Yesterday was the highly anticipated Snowmageddon day here where ToastyBros HQ is located, and even though the snow fell flat, the project I took home to work on because I was expected to be snowed in for a couple of days most certainly did not. This right here is the Geekom Geekbook X14 Pro, a laptop that has a lot of power under the hood and I was incredibly impressed with, and the main reason why I took it home to work on because I was very excited to see what this thing is capable of. And our friends at Geekom were nice enough to sponsor this video to showcase it and just dive into the laptop space that Geekom is in, because when you think Geekom, you're probably thinking mini PCs, but no, they're making small form factor laptops with Ultra 9 CPUs, 32 gigs of RAM, and a 2TB SSD, alongside a 2880 by 1800 OLED display. And the price tag is actually pretty competitive too, with this top of the line model being $1249. And in this RAM and shortage economy we're currently in, getting that level of specs for that price point, even though it's not a gaming device, is really good for the money. And this is a little bit different for the ToastyBros, because again, we normally focus on gaming devices, but as somebody who actually does work, well, it depends if you think this YouTube thing is work. Let me know in the comments down below. I need a portable laptop that has good battery life, and it's compact enough to fit inside my backpack or easily able to carry around the office throughout the day. And something like this from Geekom makes me very excited for the future of Windows laptops. And also because I am in the Linux rabbit hole right now and I just can't seem to get my way out of it, I decided to install a Linux distro on this laptop as well to see how it fares in Linux. And there's some good and there's some bad, but we'll talk about that later on in the video. First, let's dive into the unboxing experience, and thanks again to Geekom for sponsoring this video. Now inside the box, whether you buy the high-end model that we have here with the Ultra 9 185H, which is a 16-core 22-threaded processor, or go with the Ultra 5 CPU option, you get this included laptop dock, which is basically a USB-C cable that does go to the laptop, one of the USB 4 ports on the laptop. It gives you access to 2 more USB 3 ports, an HDMI out, a pass-through for the power, and an Ethernet. Cool addition, and I really appreciate laptop manufacturers when they do give us USB-C ports, giving us access to a dock out of the box so you don't have to go ahead and invest in that later on. Even though a lot of us probably already have these docks lying around, it is still very appreciated. Inside the box, you also get a 65-watt charger with a USB-C to C cable, and the laptop, which on first impressions is a really sleek design. I really love this soft touch metal that is around the entire frame of the laptop. It feels very premium in the hand, which is really cool for a laptop at this price point. And I'm not saying $1249 is cheap by any means, but for a laptop that is designed to do some work and the amount of cores and threads we got in here with all the storage and stuff, they could have really cheaped out on the plastics, but overall it feels very sturdy in the hand and coming in at only 2.2 pounds and can be opened with a single hand. No need to have 2 hands open your laptop. It makes this laptop perfect for students and office users on the go. Starting on the right side of the laptop, you get one USB 3.2 Type A port, a 3.5mm audio jack, and a camera privacy shutter. And on the left side of the laptop, you get 2 USB 4 Type C ports up to 40 gigabits per second and one HDMI 2.1 out. Those USB 4 ports are awesome because you can do things like an eGPU setup at home. Let's say you're using this laptop as your work laptop, and then you come home to a dock with an eGPU. With that Ultra 9 CPU and an added graphics card, you can do some serious gaming on this little tiny laptop. Now, the one thing that really stands out to me and why I'm really excited about this laptop is the OLED display. We have a 14-inch 2880 by 1800 resolution display that is OLED. Super sick, really cool to see, and it is 120 hertz. Now, you might be thinking, this is a work laptop, why need 120 hertz? Well, in a world where all our phones are coming shipped with a high refresh rate display, or a smooth motion display as Apple likes to call it, 120 hertz is really nice just for usability. It makes your laptop feel much snappier and more responsive, and once you go to 120 hertz, I'll be honest with you, it's really hard to go back on a laptop that doesn't have it. That's coming from me, somebody who rocks an older M1 MacBook Pro with a 60 hertz display. Upgrading something with the smooth motion has been very tempting for me. Now at this resolution, gaming doesn't seem like something that would be that possible, but I did test some games on it because hey, this is the ToastyBros YouTube channel and we love to do some gaming, but realistically, you're gonna have to be okay with lowering that resolution down to something like 1920 by 1200, which I'll be honest with you, looks pretty good on this 14-inch display. Again, it's a 14-inch display. The pixel density of 2880 by 1800 is actually kind of insane. So even if this was a 1920 by 1200 display, it would still look pretty dang good, but you got to keep your expectations a little bit managed on what this thing can do for gaming. I would say gaming is an afterthought, something that you do on the side while you're on a business trip or in between meetings. I don't care what you do in between meetings. If you want to game on this, play Balloon Tower Defense, you can definitely do that. Or some of the games that we did test that ran pretty well with adjusted settings are as follows. We ran CS2 at 1920 by 1200 using the built-in benchmark tool that they have, and also playing a live action game so I could get a feel for it to make sure it actually was a smooth experience. And running low settings, competitive settings, we got 100 plus FPS. We actually got close to maintaining 100 plus to where we could actually use that 120 hertz display and have a pretty smooth experience. Now, you're not going to go to Global Elite in CS2 with this laptop, but it's cool to see with the integrated art graphics on this CPU, you can play some games at respectable settings. Now, an indie game we love to test is Peak, and I actually tested Peak on the native resolution, which I will say is a bit of a stretch, but I did run that with a lower render scale, lower details, and once you get in game, it looks really dang good and gets around 60 FPS on average. Again, I would probably reserve the 2880 by 1800 resolution to really low end games, something like a Hollow Knight, or if you're doing emulation, that's what I leave that native display for. But anything else gaming wise, I would definitely go down to 1920 by 1200 to really get more FPS. And lastly, I ran GTA 5 Enhanced, which just for the fun of it, a lot of you like to play GTA 5. I ran this on the minimum settings, which for Enhanced is still higher than the original game, but at 1920 by 1200, and we got close to a 60 FPS average with some stutters here and there. It was cool to see that these integrated graphics are not unusable. Sometimes these laptops that are thin and light, they end up just totally disregarding gaming whatsoever, but with this CPU and integrated art graphics, you can do some gaming. It's not impossible. Now, one of the biggest downsides with laptops of this form factor is going to be cooling, and when we have an Ultra 9 CPU with 16 cores and 22 threads, I am fully anticipating this laptop not to reach its max boost clock of 5.1 gigahertz under full load, because that would be incredibly unrealistic. So I ran OCCT in the worst possible scenario possible for this laptop, stressing the CPU to 100%, stressing the RAM to 100%, and the integrated graphics to 100%, and it did downclock. And honestly, to a point where I was kind of okay with what I was getting. It was hovering around about 2 gigahertz on an all-core load, which for most scenarios with this laptop, you're not going to be running a massive all-core load unless you're doing some video rendering or 3D modeling, which is very realistic. But 2 gigahertz with all those cores and threads, I can kind of live with for this form factor. The people at Geekom are not magicians. They're not going to be able to take hardware that is really power hungry and make it just absolutely possible on such a thin and light laptop. There's always going to be sacrifices, but in terms of the fast responsiveness the CPU gives you in short bursts where it doesn't thermal throttle down because of the form factor, I think they still did a good job choosing the CPU they went with for this laptop. Now, it's something I wanted to throw in because, again, I was snowed in at my home and I wanted to spend a little more time with this laptop, was installing a Linux distro on it. I installed Fedora KDE Plasma, which if you haven't seen my video where I tested it on a full gaming PC, definitely watch that video because there'll be more content about that Linux distro. But in recap, I really enjoyed it and it was super easy to set up, and it's one that works really well for beginners. So I got Fedora KDE Plasma, made a bootable USB at home using the Media Writer tool you can get from their website, plugged it in, spammed F7 to get to the boot menu, and went through the install process, and just like that, I wiped Windows on this device and threw Fedora KDE Plasma back on it. And overall, everything worked pretty good, minus a couple of issues. One of the issues I did have was not being able to play back some MP4 files, which I will say is more of a Fedora issue than this laptop issue out of the gate. Sometimes there's not certain codecs pre-installed and you have to go through and manually get them, but once I did, I was able to do that and load up Kden Live, which is a video editing software that you can get for free on Linux, and it's pretty robust. I do look like an absolute boomer though using this software because the keybinds are totally different than anything I've ever seen in any video editing software. Getting used to it would be something I need to do to be more effective and efficient in this editing software, but I could throw in some old files from previous Micro Center trips and different videos that we have with some B-roll clips, and it runs pretty dang smooth. But for those wanting to run Linux on a mobile workstation, there's so many different distros you can go with, but this laptop seems to work very well out of the box. And lastly, let's talk about the teardown of this laptop and what kind of upgrade you can do and can't do. Now, the teardown is very easy, but I'm not a huge fan of the security screws that go all the way around the back of this laptop. You need a very specific TR bit to get it working. I think it's a TR5. But I want to hear from you guys in the comments down below. Is that kind of a standard thing for a laptop that's meant for IT professionals just to keep things extra safe? That would make sense to me, but realistically, as someone just using this at home, I think it's kind of an annoyance, but let me know in the comments down below. It's kind of the same setup MacBooks use. But once you remove all those screws and get a plastic pry tool to go all the way around the edge of this laptop, and you can lift off the back plate, you are now greeted with the inside of this laptop, which the cooling looks pretty solid. You do see the CPU underneath this cover right here, and right below that is the SSD. Now the RAM is soldered, which again, in laptops of this size is not uncommon, but the fact that Geekom makes this a base model where you get 32 gigs of RAM with either model of this laptop, I can kind of forgive the soldered memory, and in this RAM economy, getting 32 gigs of RAM in a laptop at this price point is going to be a blessing. Very, very soon it's going to get much worse to be able to do that, so shout out to them for being able to, but you can at least upgrade or change out the SSD if you want to, so that's cool to see.
Okay, and this is what the webcam looks like, sounds
like. I do have a bunch of lights shined at me right now, but this is my typical home office setup. Hopefully it sounds decent. Hopefully I don't scare my fiance when I do this. 3, 2, 1. See what that sounded like. So in recap, the Geekom Geekbook X14 Pro. What do I think about this thing? I will say this is the closest I've ever been to getting a laptop that would swap me away from using a MacBook as my daily driver. The number one reason I love using a MacBook is mainly because of the battery life and just quick ease of use and the small form factor that is really nice. And every time I've tested a Windows equivalent laptop, they've always underperformed or just not had the battery life that I'm expecting, or they just have some random quirks that I really don't like. But using this laptop for the short period of time that I have, I've been a huge fan of this device, and I really do think it's one that you should consider. Even though you may not think of Geekom for laptops, in this market at this price point, this is a really cool option to look at. Now, the elephant in the room I do have to address before we end this video is Panther Lake, the new Intel CPUs coming this year, actually very, very soon, that will replace the Meteor Lake CPU that is in this laptop. I would love to see Geekom come out with a version with Panther Lake, but I would imagine they probably won't, given how much work they put into this specific model for this CPU line, so they might miss out on the really cool features coming from Intel Panther Lake. So ultimately, it'll be up to you to decide, especially how those laptops are priced. I would imagine those laptops are actually going to be quite expensive given this RAM market, so getting something that's a little previous gen would probably be a good price performance option. But I would be remiss if I didn't mention the new CPUs coming from Intel that have really good iGPU performance. It can give you even better gaming and productivity performance with a longer battery life than the previous generation. So just keep that in mind when buying. But if you want to learn more about this Geekbook, check the link in the description down below. It will be an affiliate link and it will help us out. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this style review. A little bit different than what we normally do, but since we had some unforeseen circumstances, I figured it'd be a fun way to keep the content train going, take this thing home and have a full day with it to show you guys everything it's all about. So as always, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, be sure to check out our other 2 YouTube channels and also our twitch.tv/ToastyBros, where we're gonna be doing a 48-hour live stream coming up on February 20th. It's gonna be a subathon. We're gonna give away a bunch of cool tech. Be sure to be following over there. And we'll see you guys in the next one. Now, if you're somebody who doesn't know what laptop to go with or gaming PC to go with, and you're just a little confused and need some direction, ToastyBros.tech has got you covered. Whether you are local in Louisville, Kentucky and want to come into our storefront where our helpful staff can help you out finding the perfect laptop or desktop for you, or you need to go to our website and browse our inventory and show you guys all the different options we have covered, we can do that for you at ToastyBros.tech. Use code ToastyBros on checkout to save 3% of your next purchase. See you guys later. Goodbye.